Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I am your host, Mystery Red, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read in concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're doing a beta read in concrete of a piece of original fiction. We're looking at Chapter 2 of Remains for Ladybugs88. I'm going to call them Ladybug. So I will have in the description a link to my read for Chapter 1. And let's see, a quick recap. We are introduced to Cecilia and Felicia, who were dating, and then they had a disagreement where Cecilia, aka Cece, Felicia wanted Cece to come out. Apparently, she was still kind of, I guess, not out at work, not out with her family, and Felicia wanted to be serious with Cece, and she was like, "You need to come out." And so they kind of had a disagreement and they separated. But apparently they lived right next door to each other. And Cece could not, I think she was trying to like message Felicia, and Felicia wasn't returning her calls, and she thought it was because she was mad at her. And then she's like going over and knocking on her door, and she goes inside, and she feels really awkward about going inside. Because she's never been in there with uninvited, but Felicia's missing. So the long story short, Felicia is missing and we don't know anything yet. Like literally there was no mention of anything being out of order in Felicia's apartment, no clues. There was just nothing. There's just no Felicia. And I feel like, did she go to her parents? I think she went to her parents. Forgive me because I'm reading for like a multiple people right now, so I'm trying to recall. I feel like she went to her parents or someone in Felicia's family. It turns out they already knew about Cecilia, so because Felicia was out, so it turned out to be okay, except that they also did not know where Felicia was. So Felicia's missing, Cece's looking for her, and that's where we left off. So now we are on to Chapter 2 of Remains. All around town, missing posters on street poles showed Felicia's disarming smile and beautifully mismatched eyes and asked for help in finding her. I'm going to pause already. Not in a bad way. Because we have two ands in our opening line, I'm inclined to suggest that we change "and asked" to "asking." And I'm just going to read it that way and see if you like it. All around town, missing posters on street poles showed Felicia's disarming smile and beautifully mismatched eyes, asking for help in finding her. The local news ran a segment on her on television and in print. So we have on and on. And so this could be perfectly fine. I'm just going to say that I noted on, and so I'm going to give it a second and think about it for just a second. The local news ran a segment on her on television and in print. Let me think about it for just a minute. I suspect that my suggestions would make this longer, and therefore I don't know if they're particularly helpful. Like the local news ran a segment on her, both televised and in print. Ooh, that worked. How did that happen? Okay. Yes, that is my suggestion. The local news ran a segment on her, both televised and in print. There you go. Okay, that's my suggestion. We're going to go with that before I make it something not as good as that. Okay. It showed the same photograph as the poster. Despite my eyes drowning in tears, I recognized the picture as one I had taken. Okay. I both like and don't quite like this sentence. And I'm going to show you what I like and what I don't like. I don't like my eyes drowning in tears. I feel sad for her, but I want to say this some other way. But I do like her recognizing the picture as one she has taken because it's personal. And therefore, I immediately go into a state of empathy for her. So What is a little bit, what is not working about this? Despite my eyes. I think what it is for me, and I just talked to someone else about something similar here. I think what it is we're in first person. And when we are in first person, I hesitate to use my paired with a personal description of oneself in a state of an emotion. I think what it is I want you to show me the emotion. Her eyes drowning in tears. I mean, I want to feel this emotion, so I want you to show it to me instead of tell me. So we've got to think about what that looks like. Are her eyes red rimmed? Are they blurry? Are they dark circles underneath of them? Now, she's not looking at herself right now. So, because she's not looking in a mirror, she's looking at this missing poster. What does, maybe her eyes burn? Her eyes ache from crying. Let's see. There's a lot of different options. If she describes what her eyes feel like, although I don't like it when we say, I feel, or my eyes feel, instead you want to say, my eyes burning. Like, you know what I'm saying? Describe a sensation. That's what I'm going for. Describe a sensation paired with her recognizing the picture. And then we're going to have emotional impact. So you were halfway there. Okay, so let's see. Despite my eyes drowning in tears. Tears blurring. Let's see. Tears blurring. My tears distorted the letters or the words, you know, something like that. My tears distorted the word missing. I only recognized it because I knew what you know how like you recognize, like when you're crying, but sometimes you know what something says because you recognize it, like because you've seen the format so many times, something to that accord. Obviously less wordy than me. I don't want to go on too long about it, but I just kind of wanted to give you examples of what I'm describing to help you find it on your own. So I think the most helpful thing I said was find a sensation. My eyes burned. See, burning is the sensation. My vision's blurry. There's a sensation. My eyes were blurry with tears, but I recognized the picture as one I had taken. Something to that accord that satisfies you and is yours. Okay, we're gonna go with that. We're gonna keep going. In it, Felicia stood by the laughing men statues in English Bay. Sunglasses pulled up on her head, she smiled with perfect teeth and adorable dimples, and held a disposable coffee cup with one hand and her hair back from the wind with the other. I'm going to pause. I love the visual, but we have like 1, 2, 3 ands in here. So there's an opportunity we could probably find to break this into 2 sentences, and it'll still say exactly what you are saying, and still give you that beautiful visual, which is absolutely adorable. Sunglasses pulled up on her head, she smiled with perfect teeth and adorable dimples, holding a disposable coffee cup with one hand, her hair back from the wind with the other. There you go. See, I took out the ands and just kind of glossed through it. If you don't like that, you could just look for a break and start a new sentence and keep your words, because the visual's been fantastic. Just look for a break there. Vancouver police seek missing woman, the province, April 24th, 2017. The Vancouver police are hoping someone can tell them the whereabouts of Felicia Aurelia Sansugarescu, last seen in the early hours of April 21st and reported missing the following day. The 25-year-old Vancouver resident and UBC law student is 5'5" and 125 pounds with brown hair and blue-green eyes. Based out of Bucharest, Romania, her parents have offered a generous reward on information leading to her location. Anyone with knowledge of her whereabouts is asked to contact the VPD's Missing Persons Unit. Where was Felicia? Had she mistaken my insecurity for rejection and done something rash? Had she put herself in harm's way, distraught over my refusal to out our relationship? Why hadn't I stayed with her that night? Why hadn't I told her what she wanted to hear? You have had in there. I omitted it, but that's me trimming out words. You're absolutely fine. There's no need to change anything about that. I just want to acknowledge that my mouth did not say that word. And I know that I did not say that word. Okay. For the next few agonizing weeks, the police asked questions and searched the building and Felicia's apartment for clues. Okay, because we have two ands, I'm inclined to make a slight suggestion. For the next few agonizing weeks, the police asked questions and searched both the building and Felicia's apartment for clues. There you go. So I'm just adding one word to take out a duplicate word and smooth it out just a little bit. The media regurgitated the same information over and over again, except for an article on the Times Colonist, the only one to offer any glimmer of hope. I printed it to PDF and added it to the growing folder titled Felicia I had created on my laptop. Missing woman in Swartz Bay Terminal. Oops, I missed the word ferry. Let me try that again. Missing woman in Swartz Bay Ferry Terminal. The Times Colonist, May 1st, 2017. Missing since April 21st. Vancouver resident Felicia Aurelia Sansugorescu was reportedly seen by two teenagers while waiting to board the Swartz Bay Ferry on Vancouver Island. The Victoria Police reviewed camera footage from the terminal, but did not confirm the woman's presence. Sansugorescu's parents announced today that they have doubled the reward for information leading to their daughter's location and rescue to $200,000. Police investigators hope someone will come forward with information. Unfortunately, nothing came out of the ferry sighting, and my balloon of hope deflated over the next couple of days. Why had I left Felicia alone in the state she was in that night? If only I had been braver and hadn't acted so selfishly, she wouldn't have disappeared. Would she though? Reader thought. Would she though? That really depends. We don't know what happened. But I understand. She's got that guilt thing going on. A few days later, a preposterous claim added to my confusion and growing unrest. Missing woman sighted at safe injection site. What? The province, May 5th, 2017. A nurse at the Insight Supervised Injection Site on East Hastings in the downtown East Side claims to have recognized the photo of missing Vancouver resident Felicia Sansugorescu. The nurse, who requested to remain anonymous, said the missing woman had come in a few times for injections in late April and early May under an assumed name. Sansugorescu was reported missing on April 21st by a neighbor. Why would Felicia have gone to a clinic where addicts shot up? She had no track marks anywhere on her body, and she would have told me if she were a recovering addict. Could she have started shooting up after that miserable night? Okay, I'm pausing. Reader musings. They were dating for 2 years. I mean, don't get me wrong. People can hide things. But when you're intimate with somebody, you tend to know their body pretty well. And could she have started shooting up after that miserable night? Well, no, she disappeared that miserable night. So I don't know if that sentence is working for you, because it seems... Does she mean did she... Okay. Instead of saying, could she have started shooting up after that miserable night? What if Felicia muses it in a little bit different? We word it a little differently. Is that what happened to her? Did she suddenly take up drugs after our fight, or something to that accord? Because the way I'm reading this is kind of, it's making me think in hindsight that Cecilia missed it, and it's something Felicia was already doing, even though she's literally like, no. And then she's doubting herself, and she's like, did she start doing it after that night? Well, because my mind here was thinking with Cece thinking, how could I have missed that? There's no way. I almost want her to have disbelief in there, like to vocalize it. Why would Felicia have gone to a clinic where addicts shut up? She had no marks anywhere on her, and she would have told me if she were a recovering addict. When my mind here was thinking that Cece had missed something, or with Cece and considering, did I miss something? And then when I read this line, it did not hit me the way you intended. It hit me as if she had been doing this and ran already. No, because she said she started doing it. But when I read it the first time, I did not take it the way you intended. I know that. And so I was inclined to suggest rewording it to make it an afterthought. Maybe interject a thought between it. Let me play with it for a second because now I'm bothered. She had no track marks anywhere on her body, and she would have told me if she were a recovering addict. There's just no way. Unless she started shooting up after our fight. Yeah. There. Something like that. Something like that. I think what it is that she was missing that night. She also went missing on that night. I would say after our fight. After the fight. And that, I think that would have, my mind would have registered that correctly. Because my mind was also like, wait a minute, she went missing that night. And then I was, after I had to give it thought, and I was like, oh, did we go missing because we chose to run off and do this? And also, reader thought, I do not believe for a second that is what Felicia did, because in the argument that she had with Cece, she was actually more grounded and comfortable with who she was than Cece is. So I don't buy it for a second. She seemed like a very healthy, well-adjusted person. Okay, we're going to keep going. Just like I hadn't believed in Felicia's addiction, neither had her parents. Parents of missing woman refute Insight nurse story. Insight. Is that a place? Oh, there it is right there. The name of it. That's the title of it. Sorry. Okay. The Province, May 9th, 2017. Anton and Doina Sensucarescu, parents to missing Vancouver resident Felicia Aurelia Sensucarescu, spoke to the press yesterday. In a conference room at the Fairmont Hotel on West Georgia Street, the Sensucarescus asserted that their daughter has never been a drug addict. At the press conference, Anton Sensucarescu, a successful textile engineer turned industrialist in his native Romania, and his wife, former actress Doina Montegu, insisted, I wonder if it's Dina. Is it Doina or Dina? Okay, we're going to keep going. Insisted the story is a fabrication of their business rivals. The couple have challenged the nurse to come forward publicly. The Sensucarescus have recently doubled the reward for information leading to their daughter's location and rescue to $200,000. Okay, so I'm reader wonderings. Are you dropping clues in here in these little tidbits right here? I mean, you're painting you're showing the transitioning of time and all the events that have unfolded since she went missing. So you're doing lovely. I like how you're doing it. It's very easy to follow. I'm also wondering if maybe there's little hints in here somewhere, little clues on what might have happened, although I've not caught them yet, but I am taking note of some things. Okay. With no better leads on where to find Felicia, I decided to stake out the injection site. So I called in sick to work and hung around the building for 2 full days, hoping to run into her. And I'm pausing again. My reader brain is immediately going, okay, did she pursue the fairy thing too? Yes. Unfortunately, nothing came out of the fairy sighting, and my balloon of hope deflated over the next couple of days. Did she, okay, my immediate wondering was, did Cece investigate the fairy sighting herself? Because when I read this line, I'm hesitant. I don't want to lose my spot below, so I'm hesitant to highlight it. But when I read, unfortunately, nothing came out of the fairy sighting, I thought she meant like nothing came out of it from the investigation, not from an investigation she had done herself. So, note that if this line refers to an investigation done from the police and all that, then that's what I got out of it. But if Cece was snooping around this herself, I did not get that out of this line. And therefore, when I came down here as a reader and I'm reading this, okay, so she's going to pursue this injection site. My mind immediately went, okay, but you didn't pursue the fairy because they said nothing came out of it. But something about the injection site stuck out to you. I'm just musing this. These are reader thoughts, completely reader thoughts. Nothing is right or wrong. These are just musings. Okay, we're going to keep going. With no better leads on where to find Felicia, I decided to stake out the injection site. So I called in sick to work and hung around the building for 2 full days, hoping to run into her. I didn't. But a woman went in on both days, wearing the same clothes and finishing a cigarette and snuffing it out under the sole of a red faux leather boot before entering. I'm going to pause. We got 2 ands in here again, so I'm inclined to see if we can't rework it a little bitty bit. I like the visual. But a woman went in on both days, wearing the same clothes, finishing a cigarette and snuffing it out under the sole of a red faux leather boot before entering. All I did was take it out, tuck in another comma, and keep right on rolling. That's what I did. That does not mean it is technically correct. All I did was omit the and pop a comma in there in its place. But that is my personal style, and I do not know that it's correct. No one has told me otherwise. It is something that I personally do. It read okay. Take it or leave it, whatever you want. If I had met her on the street, I wouldn't have pegged her for an addict. But based on how she dressed, I guess she didn't work at the clinic and could only be a client using the facilities. Long sentence, it read okay. You might want to break into 2. Saying the same thing, just find a spot to end it and to start a new one. If I had met her on the street, I wouldn't have pegged her for an addict. I'm inclined to stop it there. Yeah, because here you continue on into the rest of your thought. I read it okay. I'm indecisive. If no one, I don't know. If no one else says anything about it, I read it okay. It could be fine. I'm just going to note that it's a long sentence. Take it for what you will. We're going to keep going. When the woman exited the building, there I stood leaning against the wall of a former hotel 2 doors down, a lit cigarette in my hand and the nearly full pack purchased minutes ago around the corner, protruding from the breast pocket of my corduroy Sherpa jacket. Okay, that one's long, but I liked it. Ugh, it's really long. The punctuation's working for it, in my opinion, because that helped me read it the way you wanted it. Oh, I'm just going to... I think it's okay. Sometimes they're okay. I think maybe your punctuation is what carried it, so I'm inclined to leave it. The visual's fantastic. I love it. Okay, we're going to keep going. Pretending to enjoy a cigarette was a small price to pay for discovering the truth about Felicia's sighting. Nice. I love it. My ruse worked. The woman approached me and asked to bum a cigarette, which I even lit for her while I told her I was waiting for someone. Felicia, of course. Small talk flowed while we smoked. Finally, I asked, "Have you heard about the missing girl being a client?" The woman fixed her glazed eyes on mine, whites showing beneath the brown irises. "You a reporter?" I snorted. "Me?" The shocked amusement on my face must have put her at ease. She wiped her nose on the back of one hand and leaned in closer, a rancid smell emanating from her. Nice. I mean, absolutely not an attractive smell, but very nicely written. "Are you family?" "Yes, Felicia's my cousin," I lied, afraid the truth would make me less endearing. The woman jerked her mop of straw-colored hair toward the building. Very nice. "This crap's hard on families." She took a long drag, exhaled, and lowered her gaze. "You got a problem, too?" Did she wonder, was I a junkie? Had she noticed me around yesterday, too? I just popped some dexedrine once in a while to keep up with my shift work. I hoped sharing that little secret would put us on a level base and get her comfortable to speak. I'm going to contemplate that one for a second. I hope sharing that little secret would Did we already say about putting her at ease? Did we already say that? I mean, yeah, you did. You got her up here. Okay, so, because I was inclined to say it down here, but I was like, wait, let me make sure. I hope sharing that little secret would put us on a level base and make her comfortable. Maybe just say a level base and omit that part. Maybe. Let's try it and you do whatever you want. See if you like it. Did she wonder, was I a junkie? Had she noticed me around yesterday too? I just popped some dexedrine once in a while to keep up with my shift work. I hoped sharing that little secret would put us on a level base. I didn't reveal I had a prescription for my ADHD, since that would have broken the spell, and that sometimes more often than I would like to acknowledge. Forgot to take the capsules. My hours change every week and it's hard to keep up sometimes. She stared at me from sunken eyes and hollow cheeks. You a nurse? No, I work at a technical support call center. Bummer. She slipped a hand under her ragged blouse and scratched herself. Did you ever see Felicia in there? The sighting had to be bogus, but I needed to ask. The woman expelled another cloud of smoke. Once. Pardon me? Could the woman be mistaken? I wanted to shout, Felicia in there? No way. But I controlled myself, hoping my countenance didn't betray my shock. The woman nodded. About 2 weeks ago, she inhaled again. Right after Felicia's disappearance, which agreed with the news piece this week. Oh, I'm using so many things right now. So like my reader thoughts are like, okay. Back here, when she was saying that she saw her in there, I was thinking, was the drug, okay. At this point, back here, I was wondering if the drug addict was lying because she like wanted in on the reward. And then when we got down here, she said 2 weeks ago, and she says right after Felicia's disappearance. Now I'm like, okay, did she get kidnapped? And did someone inject her or get her high? And then she was like addicted to it and they're making her go in there. There's, my mind is my wheels are starting to turn at this point. So those are my reader musings so far. I'm trying to piece it out. Right after Felicia's disappearance, which agreed with the news piece this week. The woman dropped the stub and ground it under the sole of one boot. I didn't recognize her as the missing girl, or I'd have did something. She looked different from the news photo. Okay, so I was going to suggest changing this, but the girl is talking and she may not have great grammar, so I think it worked. I was going to be like, I didn't recognize her as the missing girl, or I'd have done something. But she said I'd have did something, and I'm inclined to leave it because, I don't know, it could show her character. It depends on that character. So I'm just going to point out that I noticed it and leave it to character. She looked different from the news photo. Different how? I offered the woman another cigarette and helped her light it. A man wailing like a siren and wearing an open jacket and no shirt underneath passed by us and disappeared around the corner. Okay, I would take out that and put a comma and change that to disappearing around the corner. Maybe. A man wailing like a siren and wearing an open jacket and no shirt underneath passed by us, disappearing around the corner. Take it, leave it. The woman gazed at him and shook her head. A chunk of embers broke off from my cigarette onto my right canvas shoe and I kicked it off, but it burnt a small hole. Different how? I repeated. And after another long inhale, the woman crossed one arm over her chest and bit the thumbnail of the hand holding the cigarette. I wish I could remember more. To help refresh her memory. Yep, here we go. I knew that was coming. To help refresh her memory, I pulled a $10 bill from my back pocket. With a rare glint in her glassy eyes, the woman seized it and shoved it down the collar of her blouse. She had these marks around her wrists. With the cigarette in the corner of her mouth, she spread the thumb and index finger of one hand about an inch apart and ran them over the other wrist. Something happened to a girl I know, and she ended up with marks like that. A bitter taste rose in my throat, and I swallowed it down, hoping the woman was confusing Felicia with someone else. That couldn't have been my cousin. She had mismatched eye colors, one lighter and the other darker. The news hadn't mentioned Felicia's heterochromia. The news hadn't mentioned Felicia's heterochromia, so the woman must have seen her. A guy was dragging her by the arm. Stupid nurse even said to me, "Wouldn't you like to have someone this devoted to bring you for your shots, Paulette?" Against my better judgment, I took a deeper inhale of the cigarette, and it made me as nauseous as the thought of Felicia being assaulted. I dropped the butt to the ground and obliterated it under one shoe. Why had no one done anything? How could people see a woman with signs of restraint, drugged and dragged, and take no action? Who is this nurse? Oh, I don't know. Shane never supervised me. I took another $10 bill out of my pocket and handed it to Paulette. She stared at the note in her hand. Older broad with a big nose. Do you remember her name? Paulette turned her head, checking over both shoulders, then whispered, Penny Palmer. Could I locate a nurse with such a name? Had Paulette just invented it for cash? Do you remember the guy dragging Felicia? What did he look like? Dark hair, average height. Could you describe his face, eye color, or even his voice? I didn't speak to him and didn't see him up close. Yet she had stood close enough to see Felicia's mismatched eyes. I produced another bill. Paulette gave it a sidelong glance and waved it off. No need. This will be my good deed. I waited, the $10 folded in my hand. She gave the money another furtive glance. Don't know his name, and he wore shades, so I couldn't see his eyes. But what stood out about him was that tat on his forearm. Can you describe the tattoo? He wore long sleeves, but one rode up when your cousin jerked her arm. He pulled it back down, but by then I'd seen part of the tat, like a red heart with a dagger piercing through it. Since she still stared at the cash, I pushed it into her hand. Just a heart and a dagger, and some blood drops. That's all I saw. As soon as I parted with Paulette, I used my phone to locate the nearest tattoo parlor. After a brisk walk, I stepped under the shade of the black awning and opened the door to a symphony of wind chimes and a buzzing tattoo needle applied to a reclining blonde woman's shoulder. A guy with orangish sideburns bent over her. A man with colorful tattoos were covering his arms. Below the short sleeves stood, hands splayed on a countertop. I'm going to pause. Recovering? A man with colorful tattoos. I would take off the re and just say covering. Because I'm imagining recovering tattoos, which, like you wrap them for that first day or whatever. Let's just try it with covering and see what happens. A man with colorful tattoos covering his arms below the short sleeves stood, hands splayed on a countertop. Hi, can I help you? I relayed Paulette's description of the tattoo, and the man showed me their heart and dagger designs. But since I hadn't seen it myself, it could have been any of them. He declared it impossible to track down such a tattoo unless I could provide a photo or drawing. And even then, remembering a customer who had purchased something so common would challenge the memory of any tattoo artist, especially with everybody and their grandma getting ink these days. That's a long one. Let's look at it for just a second. He declared it impossible to track down such a tattoo unless I could provide a photo or drawing. Period. Even then, remembering a customer who had purchased something so common would challenge the memory of any tattoo artist, especially with everybody and their grandma getting ink these days. Yeah. My suggestion is right there. Take out the and, slap a period right there, capitalize this E, and I think you've got it. On my way home, I couldn't stop thinking of the man restraining Felicia, and as soon as I reached my apartment, I researched about buying a gun. The steps required attending a firearms course and passing the corresponding exam, so I began the application process. Okay. This is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. I'm sure you have sprinkled little clues that are come into play later along this way, which I will not know now, but I'm very suspicious of certain things throughout here that could be clues, like she's stumbled onto this thing with the injection site. I am going to note we didn't have some dialogue tags in here. I read it just fine without them. You had one. I would look at when you have like 4 of them in a row with no dialogue tag. There's a thought there though. So yeah, but you got 4 here. Generally speaking, I don't know if I personally do that. I usually give an action or a description or something, at least every other person, to keep it clear as to who's speaking. Now, this was a conversation between 2 people and it's back and forth. So sometimes you can be lax in it for that reason. If there was a third party here, I would say that's not going to work at all. But so I think we might be okay. I'm just going to note that I noticed it. It generally read really well. I'm liking your visuals and your descriptions, and I'm liking that we already have some things going on here. So we're curious about this tattoo. She's kind of hit a dead end though. So now I'm like, what's going to happen next? And now she's getting a gun. Now, one thing I did want is somewhere along the line, I kind of wanted Cece to have some feelings, but at the same time, I like the tightness of it, but let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to slip it in here and there, but let this genre stand on its own. But still, I want to keep your reader caring about Felicia, and I want them to feel what Cece feels for her. So I've got it right here. Let's see. The local news ran a segment on her in print. It showed the same photograph in the poster. We talked about this, and I got feels here. Okay, so we got feels in the beginning. We've got news, which is fine. News. Where was Felicia? Yeah, and I like these thoughts. I like her thoughts, they were great because they both told you where Cece was at in her mind, and it also passed time, and it gave information at the same time. Excellent. Okay. Then we come down here and we've got more news articles showing progression. Great job. Unfortunately, nothing came out of the sighting. Dead end. We talked about some of these. I'm just looking for any other opportunities. We might tuck in some feelings here and there and just keep that emotion kind of going. Why would Felicia have gone to a clinic where addicts shot up? She had no, okay. When this is kind of like action though. So this is a different genre that I have not written in. So feelings are that's my thing. We all know that by now. And I have to be careful because there's a certain writing style to each genre, and I don't want to interfere with that. But at the same time, it's always worth it to keep your reader emotionally invested because that's what carries weight. Okay, so she had no, she's rationalizing here. I wonder, and this is just a thought because I've got to investigate a thought. Why would Felicia have gone to a clinic where addicts shot up? So she's got a thought here. How does that thought, what does this thought make Felicia feel that you could slip in one line, like a sensation, an internal sensation, tightness in her chest, or her fist clenching, or just her mind closing off at the idea, like balking at the idea, some kind of emotional, one little line, not any longer than these, basically just one little thing of like her mind balking at the idea, something that is an emotional reaction to this thought. And you could slip it in potentially right here. And then she could continue reasoning with herself. And it's a good way to tuck things in here and there and to look for opportunities to do that. She had no track marks anywhere on her body. So let's say that her mind balks at this idea. Why would Felicia have gone to a clinic where addicts shot up? But this is first person, right? My mind blanked, or my mind shut down like an invisible wall when considering the idea of Felicia shooting up. She had no track marks anywhere on her body, and she would have told me if she were a recovering addict. No, this wasn't possible. Wait, but she could have started shooting up after that miserable night. Would she have done that? See how you just kind of so you can let her mind wander a little bit here and there, slip in the things you want, and you've kind of got it, but I want you to tuck in some kind of internal sensation amid the rationalizations. Why? You get my point. All right, so you have an opportunity here to tuck in an emotion, like an internal sensation, just one. Okay. We need to feel what Cece feels. That's my point. Okay, so we get down here. With no better leads on where to find Felicia, I decided to stake out the injection site. So I called in sick to work. Okay. She hoped to run into her. She didn't. But a woman. Okay, so we got information coming out. Okay. I also wonder, we did a lot of smashing a cigarette with our boot. There's nothing wrong with that. It's something people do, and they do it a lot when they smoke. So I think that it's okay, the repetitive action in this sense, because when people are smoking, they do the same thing over and over and over again, and they do it in a short amount of time. So I'm actually letting that go. If I had met her on the street, I wouldn't have pegged her for an addict. But so this is her just looking at this other person. She's really not gonna have feelings towards this addict that she's talking to. She's just trying to get information out of her. So let's let that go. Unless she has any internal thoughts, but I don't think those are needed, really. Like, does she have any internal thoughts about this woman? Is she speaking to her? Is she maybe considering whether or not she's a reliable source? She is a drug addict. But I'm just considering anything musing wise, but I think that part is fine, to be honest. When the woman exited the building, there I stood leaning against the wall of a former hotel 2 doors down, a lit cigarette in my hand. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for opportunities, pretending to enjoy a cigarette with a small price to pay for discovering the truth about Felicia's sighting. My ruse worked. The woman approached me and asked to bum a cigarette, which I even lit for her. I like this little, she's not a detective, but she's slipping right into the role. Small talk flowed while we smoked. Finally, I asked, okay, I'm just looking for any opportunity. This is typically just a conversation. I'm contemplating shocked amusement for a second and I was just wondering if that could be said a different way that maybe shows something, but the shock on my face, maybe I just want, instead of shocked amusement, just say the shock on my face must have put her at ease. She wiped her nose on the back of one hand and leaned in closer, a rancid smell emanating from her. Yes, Felicia's my cousin. Okay. I don't think emotions are appropriate in this conversation unless she says something directly about Felicia. So, because she's just trying to get information out of her. This is excellent internal thought right here. She's rushed, she's just natural progression of thoughts. I just popped some. Okay, good. It read really well. And I was very caught up in it. So that's why I'm looking again to make sure I didn't miss any opportunities that I should have said. Because when it reads well, after I read, I tend to be like, oh gosh, did I miss something? So I'm just looking for emotional opportunities. Let's see. Did you ever see Felicia in there? The sighting had to be bogus, but I needed to ask. Okay, so this is one, now we're talking about Felicia again. So now I'm going to be looking for internal sensations, because as she gets this news, this revelation, it does not fit her. It does not fit what we know of Felicia. And by the way, good job in chapter 1, because I completely did not for a second believe this of Felicia, not willingly. So you painted her person very well in chapter 1 as her personality showing through her actions. What kind of person she was. I gathered her to be honest. Did you ever see Felicia in there? The sighting had to be bogus, but I need to ask. The woman expelled another cloud of smoke. Once. Pardon me. Could the woman be mistaken? Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. There's a chance. Yeah, I wanted to shout, Felicia in there, no way, but I controlled myself, hoping my countenance didn't betray my shock. Okay. I want a feeling. I need like a sensation, like a feeling of some sort. Like, pretend you are Cece and you are saying this, or you're not saying this. You're forcing yourself to be the way, you've done that. But what is the feeling inside Cece? Pretend you're Cece in this conversation saying this. What is the feeling inside you? And try to slip it in here somewhere. I want the feeling part, the sensation. It does not have to be long, just as short as this, like I said, but I think this might be an opportunity, because she's like in disbelief. She's like, oh, no. Immediately my heart clenched. No way. I knew in the deepest part of me, this is just not possible. That kind of thing. So yeah, like, see that I'm described the heart clenching. I'm just picking anything, but you will know. A lot of times when you're in disbelief, what are the things that happen to you? What do you feel inside? Like I said, your heart clenches, your stomach balls into a knot, or you get nauseous, or you start to get a headache, or your fists clench, or your body tenses. And here she is trying to, her body could tense, and she's trying to will it to be relaxed because she doesn't want to alert this woman. See? And this might be a spot, when you're shocked, you kind of like straighten a little bit. You're like, come again. So those are just some descriptions. I hope it's helpful anyway. The woman nodded. About 2 weeks ago, and hailed again right after Felicia's disappearance, which agreed with the news piece this week. The woman dropped the stub and ground it into the sole of one boot. Okay, moving right along. Different how. Okay, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. I'm just looking for another reference to Felicia, because right now she's trying to get information. Okay, this part where she's been kind of been assaulted. So this was another one. Let's look at it closer because it read well, but I'm just looking for any kind of opportunity for a visceral reaction. With a rare glint in her glassy eyes, the woman seized it and shoved it down the collar of her blouse. She had these marks around her wrists. With a cigarette in the corner of her mouth, she spread the thumb and index finger of one hand about an inch apart and ran them over the wrist. Something happened to a girl I know, and she ended up with marks like that. A bitter taste rose in my throat. There we go. There was the visceral reaction. Good job. All right. And I swallowed it down, hoping the woman was confusing Felicia with someone else. Yes, good job. She had mismatched eye colors. Perfect. The news hadn't mentioned. Perfect. Okay. And against my better judgment, I took a deeper inhale, and it made me as nauseous as a thought. Good job. All right. I dropped the butt to the ground and obliterated it under a shoe. Why had no one done anything? How could people see? You know what I am thinking, though, is back here when she mentioned something happened to a girl I know and she ended up with marks like that, I almost wanted her to ask, do you know what happened to that girl? Because that might have been a clue. Like, if she had marks like that, of course it could just be, I mean, anybody could have marks around the wrist from being tied or something like that. But I just wonder, I guess it could have been related. Probably not. It's probably actually pretty common. Anyway, musings, all musings. Okay. Paulette turned her head. Do you remember the guy dragging Felicia? What did he look like? Okay. So we talked about those lines not having dialogue tags. Anything you tuck in there could be an opportunity for an emotional reaction, like a sensation as the conversation goes back and forth. You know, is she worried? I mean, obviously she's worried, but you don't want to say that. But like, you know, what are the sensations that might build throughout that conversation? Possibly just musings. Let's see. I actually really liked this. Okay, very good. All right, let's see. I think you're great. Okay, well done. Okay, I'm off to, I guess I'll be reading chapter 3 here very soon. All right, thank you so much. I'm loving it. Very caught up in it. Very invested in Felicia, the poor thing. I'm kind of don't want to know what happens to her. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next time on Mystery Red Reads.